Hey all, Nelson Malone here again, EDPS 340. I really hope you're doing well amidst all this craziness. Lecture number 8 coming up. Let's do a little light music first to surround this lecture with some pleasantness, okay? That's enough. We need to get to work. Today, a little bit more on standardized testing. Yes, indeed. You might be getting bored with that subject, but some things you need to know. You'll be dealing with standardized tests when you're teachers, as you know. I've been reading your attempts at putting a good face on standardized testing. I gave you that little assignment last week. Not all of you have turned that in, please. It's not a difficult assignment. Although a few of you did say it was painful to write because you're just apparently in the same boat as I am. I don't have a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings towards standardized testing. But again, they're part of our lives as teachers, and we are not in charge. So we go from there. Here's what I want to say, sort of a summary of all that. Many of you said, because I asked you to do a mental stretch, that standardized tests tell teachers what students know. And certainly they provide some of that. But what they don't do is align well with local curricula. So to have the same test nationwide, which might look like a good thing, doesn't really give teachers or parents or kids information on how they're doing related to the local curriculum. Remember I said this some weeks ago, I think now. Standardized tests in general test a phantom curriculum. That is stuff, quote, that the test writers believe, the test publishers believe that kids should know, say for the ACT or SAT, which are typically given in 11th grade. Kids ought to know this. And certainly the Pythagorean theorem is the Pythagorean theorem no matter where you live. But as I think I mentioned before, take history. You're going to get a little different take on the Civil War in Alabama than you will in, say, Michigan, for better or for worse. So I'd like you to remember that standardized tests test a phantom curriculum. Remember alignment with domain. We've talked about that a lot in class way back when we met in person. That obviously does not happen with standardized testing. Obviously, kids have to know something. They have to have something on the ball to do well on a standardized test. But remember that standardized tests are mostly about ranking. Remember that the score distribution always gives the bell curve. We've talked about that quite a bit at this point. So standardized tests are less about content as they are about ranking students. In fact, although we're not going to cover it in EDPS, if you ever are really interested in this subject, there's some good books out there about the origins of standardized testing, and it's a little disconcerting to read about it. I'll recommend one book for those that care right now, or maybe you'll read it sometime in the future. The Big Test. Just check that out on Amazon. It's great reading. We're going to shift a little bit here. The biggest problem with standardized testing is, again, that their scores are ranks on the bell curve. And in the U.S., and as far as I know, everywhere, academic success, or the best prediction of student academic success, is their SES. Many of you know what I'm referring to. Socioeconomic status. Basically meaning wealth or poverty, although there are other factors included in SES sometimes, such as availability of health care, availability of cultural amenities and transportation, employment opportunities, and so on. But basically, SES means wealth versus poverty. Now, what I'm about to say, in my view, is not a lefty rant. It's an observation that's pretty solid. In the U.S., wealth is typically situated among white families, to put it bluntly. And families of color tend to have less wealth. There are exceptions, of course, and this class is not going to go into the very interesting reasons as to why this is so, but it is so. Families of color tend to have lower incomes. And I hope you see where I'm going with this. If a student's family wealth or poverty is a predictor of this student's academic achievement, then we know to a great extent who is going to end up where under this bell curve. And I'm going to pause just a moment with my marker here to make my point. Stay with me. Stay with me. I hope this will be significant for you. Ta-da! Always the case. Always the case. And there's no such thing of well, one year all the kids did really well. All the thousands of kids that took a test did really well and somehow moved over to the winner's side. Nope. The score distribution is always the bell curve, and you're always going to have winners and losers. Now, the testing people and educators don't say winners and losers. That's Maylone's twist on the thing. But heck, when scoring over here means you lose opportunity at AP courses or getting into college or getting scholarships, then I don't think losers is such a dramatic moniker for folks over here. So again, typically you get students of color disproportionately represented on that side, not because so much they're kids of color or that they're incapable of doing well, but again, that socioeconomic status, meaning wealth and poverty, is a pretty strong predictor of how kids will do on these tests. Poor white kids tend to do poorly. Wealthy kids of color tend to do well. So it's just, I hope you find that interesting and a bit depressing. I am, to be clear, I am not saying that the tests themselves are racist. As many of you pointed out in your little standardized test response, it's the same test given to everyone. The problem is the use of the results of these tests are problematic. Not all students have had the same opportunities by the time they get to the test taking, be it ACT or SAT in the 11th grade, or say the Iowa even in grade 3. By that time, poverty has done its damage. It's not irreversible, but it's a tough go. It's a tough go, and this is just a shame. Because my dissertation, and I think you know what a dissertation is. It's like a cap times 40. My dissertation was on the old MEEP in Michigan, which, if you're from Michigan, you took. You remember that years ago, you took the MEEP. The MEEP compared to SCS in Michigan, and I think I found some interesting things. It got some good press. Professors like to make a mark in their field at some point, and that was how I made my mark. Midwest Dissertation of the Year. It was pretty cool. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next lecture. This was a bit of a rant, I admit, but I hope that it made some sense. And hey, let's get missing work in, please. I've tried to keep everything doable for you during this virus crisis. So we still have late work to get in. SLA or not SLA is due today. You can take advantage of turning it in late if you need to, but remember you take a little hit, well, more than a little hit on your movement toward professionalism grade, right? And you're working on the CAP. I am going to offer a Zoom session for mostly for CAP Q&A, probably tomorrow, but stay tuned, as I always say. And as I think I said in an email, if you know where the phrase "stay tuned" came from, I'm curious. Let me know. Alrighty. I miss seeing you all in person. Many of you are just clever and witty, and I love that in class. It's more tough to be clever and witty virtually. But we're all doing the best we can, right? Stay safe, stay sane, and stay tuned.